Hello, welcome to Come Learn with Paula. I'm so glad that you will be joining me today. We will be going through John chapter 8, and I think we'll just cover the first 11 verses, and that is the first 4 questions down below. So click the More button down below, and it'll give you the sheet that we're working on this week, and we will get through the first 11 verses. So if you want to pause the video and answer some questions, read over the chapter, then please do so. And if you want to just get started with me, then hang on tight, because here we go. And let me just go ahead and start by reading the first paragraph of our question sheet. So it says, God is so good to put us all together. I know times can be hard, so it's good we can share each other's burdens. It helps us to know we are loved and cared for, and we all need that. I am thankful for each of you, and I'm thankful for each of you. This week, we will see Jesus as the light of the world. This is good because sometimes the world can seem so dark, but we always have His light shining within us. May He shine brightly through each of you. So now we're going to go ahead and get started with the questions, and this is John chapter 8, and like I said, we're just going to do the first 4, but I think that'll make it easy to follow along. And this is the story of the woman caught in adultery, and so let me read the first question, and then we'll know what we're looking for. It says, we begin the chapter with the woman caught in adultery. She was brought before Jesus by the teachers of the law and the Pharisees. Once again, they were trying to trap Jesus. They challenged Jesus to stone her to death as the law instructed. How did Jesus respond, and what do you think he is writing in the sand? Okay, so I think we should read the passage. So it's John chapter 8, verses 1 through, I think we're just going to go through 1 through 4. Let's see what I say, 1 through 8. And then also, it's funny, my Bible says the earliest manuscripts and many other ancient witnesses do not have this passage. So I'm glad it's included for us. I don't know at what time it was included, but I'm glad that we get to read about it. In verse 53 of the previous chapter, it says, then each went to his own home, but Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. So isn't that interesting? Then at dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts. So, I guess he spent the whole night in the Mount of Olives. And in the Mount of Olives, we know that he spent time with God. He prayed. So he needed some alone time. Everybody needs a little alone time. And we need to take that alone time and spend it in prayer. Because if you're spending time praying, then you're going to be ready for whatever's coming the next day. And the next day, he had quite a big test coming along for Jesus. They wanted to trap him, but he's never trapped. Don't you love that? I love it. Okay, let's continue. Verse 2. At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. I like this, that he sat down. He didn't stand up and he was personable. He got down. In fact, I think that's how they used to teach back then. They would sit down and talk to the people there. So I like that. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group. So everybody's sitting, but she has to stand there. And he said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law of Moses commands us to stone such a woman. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. This is quite an interesting scenario. So they think, he's going to have to stone her, and we're going to watch it. But Jesus bent down. So I guess he stood up too, but he bent down and he started to write in the ground with his finger. When they kept questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down. So he's standing up. Now he's stooping back down. He's writing in the sand, and as he wrote in the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time. First the older ones, until only Jesus was left. Okay, I went too far. That was verse 9. Anyway, this is kind of interesting. The plot thickens. What's going to happen? Um, and so the question is, how did Jesus respond? So he said, "Okay, let's do it. Let's carry out the law, and whoever's without sin, you throw the first stone." And I kind of like this because he's saying, everybody's a sinner. We've all sinned, and you're just putting her sin right in everybody's face. And let's see where you stand. Let's see how you stand as a righteous, sinless person. And so, I don't know, but I kind of thought maybe what he was writing in the sand was their sins, that what they had done wrong and what they were guilty of. Because, the oldest ones went away first. And, they'd lived longer. They had more sin, I'm sure, in their life and knew better, and he just kept writing, and then he challenged them. So it was something. He wrote something in the sand that meant a lot, because they did not continue to press him. They did not continue to challenge him. They went away. And then it was just him and the woman. So I think that is so sweet. He knows how to handle every situation. That's why we should always go to him, because he knows what to do. So in that question, and what do you think he was writing in the sand? So if you want to tell me what you think maybe he was writing in the sand, then in the comment section below, just leave me a comment, and I'd love to hear what you have. Okay, we're going to go to question number 2. It says, what pertinent information about judging others do you find in Romans 2:1-4, and how could we apply this to our lives? So what I want to do is just take a moment about the teachers and the Pharisees. They were condemning this woman, and so I want to just talk about that, because we might be quick to condemn someone also. So let's see what the Bible says about condemning another person. So in Romans 2:1-4, it says, "You therefore have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else, for at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself," meaning you're holding yourself to the same standard, "because you who pass judgment do the same things." We're all guilty. Now we know that God's judgment against those who do such things is based on truth. So when you, a mere human being, we don't know a person's heart or their motives, right? When you, a mere human being, pass judgment on them and yet do the same things, do you think you will escape God's judgment? Or do you show contempt for the riches of his kindness, forbearance, and patience, not realizing that God's kindness is intended to lead you to repentance? Oh, isn't that interesting? God forgives us over and over. He forbears, and he's patient, and he's kind, because his goal is not to be right. I mean, he already knows we're all sinners, right? His goal is to get us to turn away from our sin and to be like him. It's just interesting. It's just doing the opposite thing. Instead of just really getting our face and being mean, he in fact is tolerant and kind, and that's what turns us. So I wanted just to think about that. And I just wanted to think also, I put, where are you trying to condemn people? Is there something in your life or in the lives of your loved ones, or your not loved ones, your enemies, that you're like, they're just terrible. I can't believe they do this. So I just want to think, how could we also implement the kindness, the forbearance, and the patience that God shows to us? And I had to look up forbearance, because that's an old word that I don't really use that regularly. And forbearance is patient self-control, restraint, and tolerance. So just, not lashing out at someone, just giving a little mercy, giving a little grace, instead of just always wanting to condemn. And, saying a little prayer for someone. You're like, oh, they shouldn't be doing that. They're doing that wrong, or whatever. Just say, God, help them, teach them, show them the way, show them the right way, free them from this sin that they're caught in. Lord, help them, praying for people and being patient, and knowing that God will take care of the matter if we'll just let him do it, try not do it ourselves. Okay, so that's just a little side note. I just wanted to talk about, condemnation. We have to be careful that they were in the wrong by bringing this woman in front of Jesus, and he just handled it so beautifully. Okay, let's go to question number 3. Obviously, none of the men were without sin. Why do you think the oldest left first? And what was Jesus' response and instruction to the woman? Okay, so now we should read 9 through 11, so let's do that. And then we're looking at who's leaving first and what is his response. So, verse 9. At this, those who had heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." Oh, wow. So he told him, "Where are they that condemn you?" And she said, "They're gone." And she says, "No one is here to condemn me." And then neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin. So I think this is so sweet. The oldest ones left first. They knew that they were defeated, that there was no challenge here. There was nothing going to happen today, and they left. And then he addresses her. So I guess he's still stooping down, writing in the sand till they're all gone. Then he stands up and talks to her, and he addresses her, and he says, "Well, I'm not going to condemn you either." But he tells her to do something. Go and leave your life of sin. So I think that's our next question. So let's read question number 4. It says, Jesus showed kindness and forgiveness to the woman instead of condemnation. He was full of grace and truth. Remember John 1:14, that it said that he had come and that he was full of grace and truth. This is a beautiful example of the new covenant of grace versus the old covenant of law. How do you think the woman felt, and how should we feel today when God asks us to go leave our life of sin? So first I want to just address as a beautiful example of the new covenant of grace versus the old covenant of the law. So in the old covenant, she would have been stoned to death right there. And, where's the man, right? The man, you can't do that by yourself. So they should have both been condemned. But nobody was stoned that day. But in the Old Testament, in the law, they would have been stoned. And so now Jesus is saying, we have a different covenant, and it's grace and truth. And so he's not wanting to be right. He's wanting to be kind. And he wants people to be free from sin, not condemned by it. He wants them to be free. So that's encouraging to us today. Is there a sin in your life that you're like, oh, this is too bad, or oh, this is too big, or oh, I'm embarrassed and I can't stop, or whatever the problem is? Just know that Jesus cares, but he wants us to go and leave. So the question here is, how do you think she felt? And I think she felt, I put it down here, I think she felt embarrassed. I would be embarrassed. I think she felt convicted, like she knew she was caught and totally guilty. And then she also felt love. I think she felt the love of God. I think that love was great, that she could feel like I think she had all those emotions at one time. Like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, I'm convicted. And then, oh, I feel this great love from this man. And, so relieved, wasn't she? How did I get out of this? This is great. And then it says, go and sin no more. And I was just thinking, how do we feel when Jesus addresses a sin in our lives? Honey, I don't want you to do that anymore. Or, sir, you got to stop, stop it. And so what should we do? We should say, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. I won't do that anymore, because he's with us. He's always with us. He sees everything we do, and he cares. And you can't have a relationship with Jesus if you're having a relationship with the world. You just can't have both. So he wants us to feel the love that he has for us, be drawn to him, and then just let go of the things that hinder us from walking with him. So go and leave your life of sin. And I'm sure she did that. I'm sure she did. She probably had to make a lot of changes. I mean, think about it. If you hung around, she had to get rid of that man, right? And maybe she had to leave and go someplace else. But it might take a lot of changes to get out of the life of sin that we're in. But that's exactly what we need to do, is to get out of our lives of sin. Okay, well, I think we did good on that little section. And then I'll start the next video with question number 5. So if you want to take a minute and go through a few more questions, hopefully we'll get through 5 through 12 on the next video. And I just want you to think, what does God think about the way you live? And whether we're the one that's condemning other people or whether we're the one that's sinning and caught in our sin, either way, God cares, God sees, and God wants us to be free from that. So I encourage you today, just have a talk with God and ask him, Lord, what is it that I need to change? How do I need to adjust my thinking and my actions so I'd please you, so that I could truly love people and walk in your grace and truth just like you do. Okay, well, that's all for today, and I will see you in a minute, so hop back on and we'll finish the lesson. Take care. Bye.